Hello, and welcome back to Alchemical Serenity, taking you down the path, through the woods, across the fields, down to the beach, where we can sit by the fire and relax, talking about the life you were born to lead in a witchy, spiritual, and druidy pagan way. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Carolyn, and I've been following my path for over 40 years since a teenager. You'll find other podcasts on this channel about the Wheel of the Year, and if you have been with me for a while, or in fact from the start, then thank you for popping back in and having a listen. I truly appreciate you being here. Leave a comment below and just tell me what path you're on, and if you're on one at all. What do you love about your path, or are you just discovering yourself? And if you leave me a 5-star lovely review on Apple, that would be fantastic too. If it's your first time here, then welcome, and I hope you enjoy some of the things that I talk about. So here we are, it's Samhain, and it's the biggest festival on the Wheel of the Year and time to party. Now, although I began my podcast at Imulk in February when spring is just about to start, you could say that the calendar and seasons are about to change into the new year at that time. But the actual end of the witchy, druid and pagan year falls now at Samhain. So if you're thinking, well, okay, I know about Halloween, but what's this Samhain thing I keep seeing written everywhere? It's Gaelic, and it has two spellings, Samhain or Samhuinn in Scotland, and it is pronounced Samhain or, Samhain, and it just means summer's end. Samhain begins at sundown on the 31st of October, and it ends at sunset roughly on the 1st of November. Although, to be fair, the energies are going to flow for a lot longer, and really for as long as you wish them to. Samhain is known as a cross-quarter day, along with Imulk, Beltane and Lunasa, and so that means that the other 4 dates are the equinoxes. Samhain falls right in between the autumn or vernal equinox and Yule or the winter equinox. Cross-quarter days were ancient 5 festival dates, so our Celtic and Gaelic ancestors always started a new season with a huge bonfire on a cross-quarter day. But as Christianity moved across Europe, these Celtic dates were incorporated into the Christian year. It's the last harvest date, so everything now is safely gathered in, and to our ancestors it was a time of rest. The cattle and sheep would be close by to the home for safety rather than roaming out on the grasslands. Food was prepared and stored for the coming winter time. Daylight hours are obviously far less than they are at the equinox, and the winter chill is just around the corner. It was also a time to celebrate the ancestors and to give thanks for the land for its harvest. On a spiritual and energy level, the veil between the world of the living and the dead is very thin at this time of the year. And if you remember, it was the same at Beltane back in May, which on the Wheel of the Year is actually opposite to Samhain. So it's a big multi-festival of Thanksgiving as the third and final harvest, a festival of remembrance for family, feast of apples, and the start of a new year for anyone on the witchy, druidy and pagan path. So if you're wondering how Halloween actually fits in all of this, in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated the Celtic day of Samhain as a saint's day called All Souls' Day or Hallows' Day. The Celtic festival celebrated their ancestors, therefore the evening before the 31st became All Hallows' Eve, which became, in the end, Halloween. It's that simple. However, in the Druid tradition, hearth fires were left to die out. Then a huge community fire and celebration took place, with the Druid priests and priestesses, yes, they were equal, conducted a ritual of praise for the end of the year, for the beginning of the next, and then to celebrate the ancestors. Hearth fires were then restarted by using hot embers or claybes in all the homes. Apples are associated with this time of the year. So if you take an apple and you cut across the core, it reveals 5 pips held in the shape of a pentagram. Try it next time you cut open an apple. The 5 points represent the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. They also represent the shape of the human body, and they represent regeneration from the pips. Bobbing for apples was originally Roman. The game traces back to a courting ritual that was part of a Roman festival honouring Pomona, the goddess of agriculture and abundance. Many versions existed, but the idea was that young men and women would be able to predict their future relationships based on the game. However, when the Romans conquered the British Isles in 43 AD, the Pomona festival blended in nicely with Samhain, and many people still bob for apples today. Another tradition is that young women would peel an apple very carefully so that the peel came off in one go, and she would then throw the peel over her left shoulder, turning to see what shape it made, and if it was an initial, and this would be the initial of her future husband. And in Irish myth, the dead are thought to eventually reach the land of the apple trees. Another tradition that still takes place today is guising, and this is when people would dress up to confuse the spirits. So we already know that the veil of energy between the living and those who have crossed over is thin, but it was believed that spirits could also be mischievous and cause trouble. So I know that in Scotland, back in the day, people dressed as spirits, and in fact they dressed up their children in sheets to look like ghosts, believing that they would confuse the spirits and no tricks would be played on them. Many places across the British Isles would leave out food on the doorstep for spirits in the hope that they would be left alone. Professor Ronald Hutton writes, when in imitating malignant spirits, it was a very short step from guising to playing pranks, which is how the art of guising and mumming could well have led to Mischief Night, which dates back to the 1700s. Could this be the origins of trick-or-treating? Traditionally in the UK, we didn't really have trick-or-treating. In fact, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and my parents grew up in the 40s and 50s, and it was unheard of to go and knock on someone's door asking for trick or a treat. Now, growing up in a small village, we would have been sent home with a clip round the ear and then to bed because a village resident would have rung up our parents and told them what we had done, and oh, the shame of it. Our Celtic ancestors had a strong belief and connection with spirits that inhabited trees, rocks, waterfalls, and plants. These spirits took on forms of giants, hags, fairies, and were said to reside in many of the mounds and hills. There are still a few called fairy mounds and fields in Scotland and Ireland. We mortals rarely see fairies because we just aren't attuned or prepare to attune to their energies. But the fae can and will play tricks on humans when they wish to. Another figure connected with Samhain is the Queen of Winter, the blue-skinned hag, the Cailleach, or veiled and hidden one. Closely associated with Scotland's landscape, legend has it that she lives in a cave. Emerging at Samhain, she travels to the Corryvreckan, which is a natural massive whirlpool found off the coast of West Scotland between Jura and Scarborough. The Atlantic tides at this time of the year make it most active. Here she washes her plaid until it's white, before spreading it as snow on the Marmor Hills. From there, wherever she passes, she brings frost and ice, and with her come 9 hag companions, bringing storms and icy winds. Pumpkins were not a thing in the UK, except grown for food and produced by many an enthusiast for the village fete, in the Who Can Grow the Largest Pumpkin competition. And in the UK, we used to use turnips. They were grown en masse, and so were sugar beets. And I remember attempting to carve out a sugar beet when we were kids. Oh, it took so long, and our hands were numb, and they were hacked to bits. But we were determined, and we made some of the most hideous-looking lanterns you can imagine. Marking the end of summer and the start of winter is one big celebration time, and Samhain is the most powerful of all the celebrations on the wheel of the year. Cleansing and clearing work, spell work, scrying and tarot card readings will all be given some extra oomph around this time. And for something a little bit different, I live in Leicestershire, and we have the largest celebration in the Hindu calendar called Diwali. It's a 5-day festival that takes place each year and every year. This year it culminates on the 12th of November with fabulous lights, partying, and the families getting together. Diwali is a spiritual festival of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance, and Leicester holds the biggest Diwali celebration outside of India. There are many Irish Gaelic stories to read, if you're inclined to, and plenty of websites online giving additional information, which is great if you enjoy your history, but as always, I'm about the now. So what does all of this mean to the neo-pagan world? Samhain, like all festivals, is a personal thing. You can follow the trends of trick-or-treating if you wish to, and dress up your home in a scary fashion, or you can dress up in more traditional with pumpkins and autumnal decorations. However, that's where the tradition split between Halloween and Samhain, because depending on the path you follow, you might be looking for a lot deeper ideas on how to celebrate on this level. So what are the correspondences for this festival? Direction is northwest, element is still water, colours are black, orange and purple, and candles are black, orange and white. Gemstones would be smoky quartz, obsidian, dark amethyst, and bogie stones. Now, this might be a new one. Now, in brief, a bogie stone is actually called also a shaman stone, and they're found in Kansas in the USA. It's believed to help with meditation and energy clearing, and especially for balancing energies. They come in two parts. One is smooth and one is rough. I have a set and they're really lovely to work with. So for this time of the year when you're wanting to clear your energies and to do some work on yourself, bogie stones are very good to work with. Flowers would be dahlias, asters, rudbeckia and nerines, all still in flower at this time of the year. Trees are blackthorn, apple, willow, elder and poplar. Foods would be pumpkins and apples. Rituals would be ancestral, connecting and sending thanks to your ancestors. And after all, you would not be here if it wasn't for great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Tools would be candles and tools of divination, such as tarot, pendulums, scrying. Deities are Rhiannon, because she's associated with apples, and obviously the Keliak, if you wish to approach her. Ceridwen is also very good at this time because she is the goddess of the cauldron, rebirth, knowledge, and transformation. Rituals will be connecting with your ancestors, and symbols like pumpkins, apples, photos of the deceased family members, and lots of pies. There's also a full moon that falls on October the 28th. So what can you do to celebrate? And without getting mixed up in the All Hallows and Halloween, here are some Samhain ideas. Saining the home. Saining is how we in the UK would go about removing negative energy in fairly the same manner as smudging. We prepare either a dried bundle of herbs or use some incense to clear the energies in our rooms. You can buy some great herbal mixes from places online which have been specially prepared for Samhain. My warning would be to be careful how much you use. I have set off many a time the house fire alarms with putting far too much of my little mix on top of the little charcoal discs. Altars. Now upgrade to present honouring the ancestors. So place photos of ancestors departed and place flowers next to them. Now I use roses as I find that these have the strongest energy to cross over the veil to connect with my ancestors. Now it could be one rose or a few, that's completely up to you. And I set my intention on my altar not only to thank Mother Earth for this year's harvest, but to connect with my family and ancestors. You could do an ancestor meditation. Take some time out and meditate. Connect back in your own DNA to your ancestors who have gone before you. Your bloodline travels back many centuries, and through meditation you can connect to the souls in that line. Full moon ritual. This full moon falls on October the 28th, as I've already said, and it's called the Hunter's Moon. And it's taken from the fact that at this time of the year, animals would have been chosen and slaughtered for meat and furs to keep everyone warm and fed over the winter period. Hunter's Moon is actually Anglo-Saxon in origin. However, connecting with the full moon on the 28th is close enough to Samhain to have some great energies to begin your celebrations. It's a good time to do some inner work on yourself, reflecting and improving the letting go of anything that is not serving you well and dedicating time to yourself. Another good one would be to visit family. If you have grandparents or grand aunts and uncles, why not take some time out to sit down with them and ask them if they can recall family and friends. Write it all down because it will be a wonderful reminder of their past and yours. My father sat down with my nana in the early 90s and wrote pages of family details that she remembered. And back then we didn't have Ancestry or any other online archives to go and find information of your family on. We had to go through the National Archives database and literally go down to London. Because now we have this ability, sometimes it's really helpful to just get those first bits of information. But it's also there's so much can be found out by your family when once you start talking about different things will come in that you remember doing with people, and perhaps you might remember doing things with your grandparents, doing things with your parents, with aunts and uncles. And it's a wonderful way to remind ourselves, but also to write these down for future members of your family. Guess what? Fire pits! Yes, you can have another one. If you love your fires outside and it's not chucking it down with rain, which it seems to be all the time at the moment because it's October, and you've got the ability to have a fire pit, then this is great. But of course, not everyone does. So if that works for you, have your fire pit, have a full on bonfire, or just light a candle on a shelf. Anything that is fire related and in control is absolutely perfect. It doesn't matter what it is. You can light a candle to your ancestors as well, or you can have a full blown fire extravaganza in the garden. Something that you may never have heard of is called a dumb supper. Now, on Samhain Eve, set an extra place at your dinner table. Serve up a meal as if someone is sitting there and joining you. Now, being a dumb supper, it's a meal that's observed in complete silence, just awaiting the energies of your ancestors to join you. And no one would look at the empty space in case someone was actually there. However, I find this very austere and quite macabre. So when I personally observed this at the table, I've actually had just a place setting in place. I haven't put food out for somebody, but it's like an open setting that if any member of the family wishes to come and sit and connect with us, I've done it that way. I don't really think in this day and age anyone could actually sit at a table and be perfectly silent all the way through. But that's what the dumb supper used to be. It used to be they would serve up a meal, leave a space, and nobody would look in fear of seeing a ghost sitting at table eating their dinner. If you're following this path, then you might like to wish your friends Happy New Year. Now, to our ancient Celtic ancestors, November the 1st was the beginning of a new year, or a new cycle. The harvest was in, celebrations over, and it was time to reflect and prepare for the long cold winter and what next year would bring. Tarot cards and tarot card reading. Now, if you have the ability to read cards, this is a great time to read for yourself and friends if you like to find out what the forthcoming year will bring. Apples. Bob, peel, eat, bake, drink. Anything associated with apples is good. National Apple Day takes place on October the 21st, and there may be some ways to celebrate this in your area. Pumpkins. Carve them, eat them, make pies, soups, or even just attend a local National Pumpkin Day on the 26th of October to celebrate. Ghost stories. Now, there's nothing like a fire, hot chocolate, and a good old scary story by the fire. Invite friends around, have a few drinks, and tell stories of any ghostly encounters you've experienced in the past. For those of you on a Wiccan path or looking into it, this is the time to dust off your besom and fly into the sky. Now, all witches in Scotland gather to celebrate Brew, which is the Scots Gaelic for witch or sorceress. Now, I gave up flying a long time ago. I just could not run fast enough to get off the ground. In fact, I can't even run for a bus these days. It gives being grounded a whole new meaning. Make your own candles. Now is a great time to look at what candles you might need for some ritual work in the coming months. With the night's closing in, crafting is always a good thing to do. Do you like simple candles, small ones, decorative that you don't burn, or scented ones? There are so many options and colours you can decide on whatever you need for the coming year. With Yule only a few weeks away, when the nights are dark, candles will be lovely to spread a flickering cosy light across your room. So now is the time to have a look to see what sort of candles you're going to need for the forthcoming year, or just really to take you through the winter season. Read that book. If you're a bit of a bookworm and you've got a shelf full of half-read and even unread books, then why not take up the opportunity of darker nights to light your candles, get comfy with your favourite brew, and finish off some books. Now, I am terrible with books and I'm easily distracted. I start off with all good intentions to read one from cover to cover, and boom, along comes another, and then something else. And then I try and get back to the first book I was reading, and I have to start again. And my worst enemy is my Kindle. So many books to download and buy. And they don't take up space, right? Do they? You don't have to have a shelf for them. So do they actually count as a book? So can I download even more to read? This is my dilemma, and I never get anything read. I hope this podcast has shed some light on Samhain for you, but also given you some ideas of things that you might not have heard about or read about. So enjoy your time of Samhain, Halloween, or All Saints' Day, or whatever path you choose to follow. Connect to you, your path, your ancestors, and have a wonderful time. And as I always say, and will continue to do so, when it comes to your path, do what works for you. Try things. If they don't work, you can either keep them or discard them. Sometimes put things to one side, as maybe they'll work again at another time. We are each on an individual path and journey of discovery, and the discovery about ourselves and the path we were born to lead. Follow your path, your way, with a little bit of guidance from people like myself who are here to share what we have learned, because maybe one day you'll be helping somebody as well. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram as Alchemical Serenity. And if you prefer to listen to this podcast on other platforms, look out for me on those too. I'm also on Apple, Podbean, and YouTube. Now, our next stop is Yule, or the winter solstice. So I will see you again soon with much love, light, and peace for the season. And just go and enjoy yourselves and have a wonderful, wonderful Samhain. Many blessings.